Happy Sunday and welcome to The Deal. I'm your host, Ed Clark. It is Sunday, September 15th, 2024, and we come to you moments after, or at least an hour now, after shots were fired near President Donald Trump at Mar-a-Lago. He was playing golf at his course. Val Atkinson is here. Val, I guess it's not funny, but it's ironic because I remember when the assassination attempt happened in Pennsylvania, Val, we had decided to do a show that day. And it was
Yes.
moments after that happened that we started recording. And first of all, welcome back. And what's going on, Val?
I'll tell you, man, I'm not sure if we should uh, maybe stagger the time frames that we have our show, since every time we have one, the former president gets shot at. We don't want him hurt. We disagree with his policies, but we definitely don't want to see him hurt. And we wish the Secret Service all the best in their efforts to protect the former president. That's their job. But I feel that it is ironic. I'm glad he's safe. And I wish that we could very soon get back to the business of determining who's going to be the next chief executive of the United States going forward. Let's get back to the campaign.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you said that part about we don't want Donald Trump hurt because let me be real clear. Political violence for any reason is not ever good. We don't condone that because certainly if somebody was trying to do something to Kamala Harris or Joe Biden or Bill Clinton or any former president, we would not appreciate it. You should not ever, under any circumstance, how much you agree or disagree with anybody. Political violence doesn't get you very far, and if it does get you anywhere, that means you're in a civil war, and we're not trying to get there. We don't have any desire to be in that place. We like for it to be fair and square, and people go to the ballot box and there be an election, and we're in election season. There's no doubt about it, Val. We were not here last week ahead of the debate. We wanted to do a show as a wrap, right after the debate, but I had to travel, and we'll talk about that later and talk about some of the places I've been. But the debate did happen, and by all accounts, everybody that I talked to and everybody that was breathing except for Donald Trump and some of his very, adamant sycophants said that Kamala Harris won. Everybody except Donald Trump and those sycophants. Even when they were in the spin room, Donald Trump was really, really trying as hard as he could, but it was clear nobody was buying what he was selling. And then even I saw Karl Rove and people like that, Val, and they were apoplectic. They were like, this is horrible. This is the end. This is, you can't be as bad. As a matter of fact, a lot of people said he was worse than what Joe Biden's performance was when Joe debated. Let's take a look at a clip, and then I want to talk about it because I think this is sort of indicative of where this whole thing went.
Doesn't have a plan. She copied Biden's plan, and it's like 4 sentences, like run, spot, run. We hardly make chips anymore because of philosophies like they have and policies like they have. I don't say her because she has no policy. She's going to my philosophy now. In fact, I was going to send her a MAGA hat. She's gone to my philosophy. But crime here is up and through the roof, despite their fraudulent statements that they made. She's a Marxist. Everybody knows she's a Marxist. Her father's a Marxist professor in economics, and he taught her well. But when you look at Putin endorsed her last week, said, I hope she wins. And I think he meant it. Because what he's gotten away with, Trump back as president. They were afraid of him. People don't go to her rallies. There's no reason to go. And the people that do go, she's bussing them in and paying them to be there and then showing them in a different light. So she can't talk about that. People don't leave my rallies. We have the biggest rallies.
So, Val, that's a compilation of facial expressions from Kamala Harris. And a lot of those expressions is just her looking bemused at some of the stuff that Donald Trump was saying. It doesn't matter what the words are he was saying. It's the look, that split screen of Kamala Harris just going, and I know she wanted to say, Negro, please, or what the F are you talking about? But she couldn't do that. But it was clearly on her face. Was it that Donald Trump wasn't prepared to answer any policy things, or was it that's just Donald Trump? That's just what you're gonna get. What's your post mortem on the debate?
I agree with the majority of the people that witnessed and saw the debate. He did lose. He lost badly. She beat him up real badly. She was very, very prepared. Donald Trump has never faced a debate opponent that was as prepared as Kamala Harris was, because she prepared for the game that he normally runs. He had advantages in the past, Ed, because his opponents were preparing for a debate, quote unquote, and he was preparing for a barbershop argument where there are no rules. And facts and truth and evidence mean nothing. And all of the other things like body language, facial expressions, tonality, they determine who wins the debate and who's right and wrong. And he ran up against somebody that beat him at his own game. She knew, her prosecutorial experience taught her, you easily be able to tell when somebody is lying. And in Donald Trump's case is, as they used to say, when his lips are moving. He cares nothing about this whole piece. She wiped the floor with him. It wasn't even close. Her facial expressions that you talked about earlier were actually surprise. I can't believe that he's so ill prepared. Donald Trump cannot debate the issues. He likes to make it a street fight type of barbershop argument where he argues against sanity. He argues against truth. He argues against reality. He gets you off your game and have you in an area that you know nothing about, because you honestly believe, Ed, that 2 + 2 = 4. If he challenges that, where do you go from there? That has been his game. And he had somebody that beat him at his own game, a female who happened to be Black. And that was the worst defeat he could ever have. So I think he lost worse than the poll numbers indicate when they asked people who saw the debate their opinion as to who lost. Some people are saying 50%. Some of them are saying 80. I go 90. I think it should have been 90% of the people that saw it felt that he actually lost, which he did. It wasn't close.
Yeah, I'm a glutton for punishment, so I turned over to Fox, and I wanted to see what they were saying after the debate, and so they had already picked up on that. Hey, the problem was the moderators. That the moderators were aggressive against Trump. One of the things I started doing about halfway through, Valdo, is every time Trump went over, I started running my watch on it. And by the end of the time, and I didn't do it the whole time, but by the end of the time I started looking, he was about 10 minutes over what Kamala even spoke. And every time they asked Kamala to stop, she would stop. She followed the rules. That's the thing about Democrats. We're the Marquis of Queensberry rules and boxing, right? We're still fighting with our hands up and bare knuckles, but we won't hit behind the head and all that other stuff. You won't hit them in the stomach. You'll stop talking when the moderator, when David Muir says, "Madam Vice President, your time is up," or Lindsey Davis says, "Your time is up." She just stopped. Donald Trump kept talking and talked over, and a couple of times, he was just plain rude. But I didn't expect anything different. What I did though expect, Val, was that I really did think that he may have been a little more prepared than he was, but I guess he doesn't have the capacity for that. I want to remind you, you're listening to or watching The Deal with Ed Clark and Val Atkinson. It's Sunday, September 15th, and we come here today in the midst of another apparent assassination attempt. The latest headline I got pulled up here. I just refreshed. A long gun has been recovered at the scene, according to sources. Sheriffs give a timeline that say Secret Service agents saw somebody through the woods, noticed the gun barrel. They were able to spot that rifle barrel sticking out of a fence. They engaged the suspect, and then even the former president heard the gunshot. They were able to apprehend the person who is in custody. And there you go. So we're here again, Val. I will reiterate, political violence is not the option here. I want to beat Trump and the Republicans fair and square at the ballot box. I expect people to come out and vote. If you look at the crowds, Val, at the rallies for Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, by all accounts, they're far exceeding Donald Trump's turnout. And I'm sure that's making him feel really bad because he is concerned about turnout and how many people are at his events. We're here in North Carolina, and one of the things that we had talked about before we came on is we may have to get Kamala Harris to register in North Carolina. She's been here so much, she may have to pay North Carolina income tax. The events she's been having in Charlotte, Greensboro, Raleigh, Tim Walz is going to be here again this week. She was in Greensboro and in Charlotte on Thursday. Let's take a look at this clip and let's talk about the crowd in Greensboro.
Carolina was the first stop back on her campaign trail after Tuesday's debate. Tonight, she shared how she plans to get elected in 2024. Nearly every seat in the Greensboro Coliseum was filled with folks looking to make Vice President Kamala Harris the country's next president. Harris spoke a lot about moving the country forward.
We are ready for a new generation of leadership.
With banners across the room and people holding up signs reading "A New Way Forward," that was on the mind of many in the crowd, even younger people.
I'm super excited. I can't wait to see Kamala Harris. Yes, I'm really excited, and I really hope she's being president.
Harris focused some of her speech on protecting the rights of Americans, particularly a woman's reproductive rights.
One does not have to abandon their faith or deeply held beliefs to agree. The government should not be telling her what to do with her body.
It's one of the reasons several women in the crowd were there, the protection of women's rights. One woman in the crowd says she attended for her young granddaughter, Layla.
She's just 6 months. How's it going to be if she don't have freedom? I mean, that's what I'm here. You know, she's going to be strong. This is showing her how to be strong.
Harris took time to focus on the economy, too, building up local business owners.
You are community leaders. You hire locally. You mentor. You are part of the fabric of our communities.
So, Val, there you go. That was a big crowd in Greensboro. Very raucous. I know a number of people went. I know people who went in Charlotte. There were 7,500 in Charlotte, smaller venue, but they were in the Greensboro Coliseum. The holds 18,000 people. By all accounts, it was full, but people were behaved. They got in. So one of the things, though, Val, that the Republicans have been saying is, oh, those crowds aren't real because they come in on buses. I want you to talk about the difference between how black folks attend rallies and stuff like that compared to white folks. We will get on a bus and go because we share the resources. And why would, 17,000 different people drive a car when you could bus a group of people from Chapel Hill or wherever to go to the rally? But talk to me again about whether or not these rallies and rally sizes will result in additional turnout, because you and I have talked about this. This is going to be down to turnout, right?
It's going to turn out to be about turnout. And turnout begins with enthusiasm and excitement and those kind of things. These rallies, they're about the business of building enthusiasm and excitement. So it starts here. The people come back home and say, let me tell you where I was last Wednesday or last weekend. I was at the Coliseum. You wouldn't believe the energy there. Da, 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 da. And somebody says, well, you're going to vote? Yeah, heck yes, I'm going to vote. And I want to take you with me. The excitement starts building right there. And the Democrats know that. That's why they're trying to get as many people as possible to come out to these events, get excited, come back, infect the rest of the community with their excitement, and maybe keep that going on until November the 5th. So it is important. That's why Donald Trump really reacts negatively when you suggest that his turnouts are smaller than those of Kamala Harris. He really gets to be problematic when you tell him that his people are leaving soon from his rallies. He doesn't want to hear that. So these things really matter. There is no truth in the assertion by Donald Trump that we are paying these people to get on the bus. We're paying these people to go to the rally. We're paying these people to do it. That's not the case. Of course, if we wanted to, we could. That's not the case. People are doing this because they have a dog in the fight. People are doing this because they want to. They believe in Kamala Harris and what she is talking about the future of the country. Donald Trump can't stand it. He is beside himself, Ed. He can't stand it.
Yeah, one of the things that the last thing here on the debate before we have to take a break, I thought that Kamala Harris was able to get in real specific about what her plan was. But you and I have both talked a lot over the years about how Democrats will go, well, we got this plan and yada yada, and I know that you should listen to the numbers that we have about how good we've been doing with the economy or whatever, and people like those issues, the sort of cultural issues, abortion and all that. And she did a good job of not only talking about the things that Democrats normally do, which is those issues about here's our policy, right? But I thought she did really well with saying this guy's a danger because on some of the cultural issues, he's not gonna be, in line with what you're believing. I hear some music in the background, Val. When we come back, I want to talk about some of the people who Trump has around him in the problems they're causing in terms of the population in Springfield, Ohio, and some other places. A lady named Laura Loomer that we need to talk about. So stay right there. We'll be right back after this message.
In 2016, Donald Trump said he would choose only the best people to work in his White House. Now those people have a warning for America. Trump is not fit to be president again. Here's his vice president.
Anyone who puts themselves over the Constitution should never be president of the United States. It should come as no surprise that I will not be endorsing Donald Trump this year.
His defense secretary.
Do you think Trump can be trusted with the nation's secrets ever again?
No. I mean, it's just irresponsible action that places our service members at risk, places our nation's security at risk.
His national security advisor.
Donald Trump will cause a lot of damage. The only thing he cares about is Donald Trump.
And the nation's highest-ranking military officer.
We don't take an oath to a king or a queen or to a tyrant or a dictator. And we don't take an oath to a wannabe dictator.
Take it from the people who knew him best. Donald Trump is a danger to our troops and our democracy. We can't let him lead our country again.
I'm Kamala Harris, and I approve this message.
And welcome back to our second segment of the deal. I'm your host, Ed Clark. That's Val Atkinson. It's Sunday, September 15th. We're 50-some days from Election Day proper, but a lot of states will be voting early. Val, we didn't talk about this in the prep for the show today, but it made me think about the fact that North Carolina was supposed to have absentee ballots ready for about 100 and some thousand people. But some nutcase named Robert Kennedy Jr. Complained about having his name on the ballot. He got on the ballot. Then he complained that he wanted his name off the ballot. And then so, of course, they found some Republican judges that would, throw this into disarray. So now the absentee ballots hadn't gone out, but also other ballots got to be reprinted. A lot of money had to be spent to take care of that. Let's start first with how that's part of the shenanigans, and that's the polite way to say it, the shenanigans the Republicans have in their playbook for either throwing this election in disarray, right, by making it odious for people to vote, or if people vote and Kamala Harris and Democrats find a way to win in places, how do you throw this into disarray so that, there's no real way to determine who's going to win the election? So I know that you've been thinking about this because, again, you're a former political science professor. We talk often about the Electoral College and the Constitution and all that. And so here's our history lesson for this week, Val. How do the Republicans use their shenanigans to throw the presidential election in disarray? What's the constitutional way, or at least semi-constitutional way, that they can make this bad for everybody?
Well, they're going to try a couple of things first that's not specifically talked about outright in the Constitution. They're going to try to suppress the vote by sowing confusion. They're going to do everything they can to make sure that the not so good voting machines are in the precincts that have high African American and brown people populations. That creates longer lines because you have breakdowns and those kinds of things. They're going to do what they call voter file management. We call people in the business, we call it purging, because that's what they do. They go in and they stand behind one of North Carolina's not lies, I would call it, but rules and laws and statutes that says if you have not voted in 2 consecutive federal elections, you can be removed from the roll and you'll have to be re-registered. Now, what are 2 consecutive federal elections? Federal elections happen every 2 years. So if you didn't vote since Barack Obama was on the ballot, if you didn't vote since Joe Biden beat Donald Trump, come November the 5th, that's 2 federal elections that may be on their way out. So count them good. If you miss 2 consecutive federal elections, you need to go down there and re-register to vote while there's still time. Okay? So that's the other thing that they're doing, purging the files. And they're doing it in a pejorative way. If your name happens to be Rodriguez Jesus, and there's somebody on the file that should be removed that their name is Jesus Rodriguez, they take both of you off. And they claim to be doing it properly because they say if anybody brings to our attention that we've made a mistake, we'll gladly correct that and put them back on. Well, getting back on the ballot on November the 6th is no good. So that's why we recommend and tell people all the time, make sure that you have an active voter registration that is still good. So that's one of the things they're going to do is purging the file. The other thing to watch out for, Ed, is the whole business of validation or certification of the vote. It has to happen at the local level first. And if enough counties don't send in their validation on time, that state's electoral college votes could be questioned. If they don't get to where they're supposed to get to on time, it could be questioned. And part of the strategy is to voluntarily withhold, slow down, having your feet hanging out the wagon to slow things down so that it can't be counted. Now, here's a way, the final decision, Ed, and you and I have talked about this before, you need 207 electoral college votes to win. If enough states are did not certify their votes on time, it's a possibility that no candidate could get to 270. And if no candidate gets to 270, everybody's got 230 or or 190 or whatever it happens to be, then it's considered to be a contentious election and it's thrown into the House. The House of Representatives, which has 435 electoral college votes, 438 now with DC. But in a contentious election, each state will have one vote. One. That means that there will be 51 votes out there, counting DC. The first candidate to 26 wins. The last time we counted, there were 30 states that leaned Republican or supported Donald Trump. So the first 26 of those 30 wins. And thereby, little old Wyoming, with its 500 and some odd thousand citizens, becomes just as powerful, if not more so, than the behemoth California with 40 million people. Because both have one vote to determine who's going to be the next president of the United States. That is the horrible legacy of the Electoral College. And it was put in place to help the slave states to stay a part of the Union so it wouldn't fall apart. So there's a book out now by R.A. Berman that asks the question, do we still need the Electoral College? It's a crazy question because the answer is absolutely not.
Right.
We do not still need the Electoral College. But those are the ways that Donald Trump's team has planned to win this election even after he loses. He will not say, congratulations, Kamala, you ran a great race. I wish you well. He will not say that. He will not, just as though he did not concede to Joe Biden on the night of the election that everybody was calling it. It'll be the same thing here. He won't concede. He'll have his lawyers going to the Supreme Court and everywhere he can. I'm just so glad he's not president now because he'd probably call out the army.
Right.
Seize all of the voting records and the voting machines. And this is what you'll get if you elect Donald Trump in 2024. This is what you'll get in 28 if somebody else beats him out. He'll call out the army, seize all the records, and nothing you can do about it. And plus, he's got the protection that the Supreme Court gave him, that anything he does in office can't even be prosecuted. So, I mean, he would be so powerful at that particular time that the 22nd Amendment would be no good. 22nd Amendment says that you can't serve more than 2 terms. And what he would say to that is, well, we've had questionable elections, so I'm going to continue to serve until we can straighten this out, which could be 10, 15 years from now before it gets straightened out. Those are the scary plans, folks. That's what we're opening our doors up to if, in fact, Donald Trump ever gets his foot back in the door, or as they say in the Middle East, if he ever gets the camel's nose under the tent, it's all over.
Yeah.
We've got to keep him out of that White House.
Well, I want to remind you, you're listening to or watching The Deal with Ed Clark and Val Atkinson. It's another somber Sunday, apparent assassination attempt. As far as we know, we'll know a little bit more tonight, but somebody's in custody. But it's in the midst of what Val Atkinson's scary proposition that Donald Trump being president and some of the shenanigans that he would pull. But even not being president, some of the shenanigans they plan to pull to try to throw this in disarray, Val, so that it's not clear, how we're going to choose the president. We're going to stick by this electoral college in Arcania from 1791, or when they're trying to decide, how they're going to be, determine who the president is, and then they've made some changes over the years, but not substantial changes. And all this changes, like you said, favor a state like Wyoming. There's more people in one county in North Carolina than the whole state of Wyoming, or Montana for that matter, or Vermont. So why do they get to have as much sway as anybody else and can determine who the president's going to be? And I know a lot of people go, well, my vote really doesn't count or whatever, blah, blah, blah. Now, we started off this segment, Val, though, by you talking about the purging of the voter rolls and stuff. I happen to be on this little program called Connections that some guy named Val Atkinson started. And last week we had Civic Sunday. And on there we talked about voting and which rules apply, that kind of thing. But before when we started the conversation, Val, I saw this Pew study. And we started talking about this study. And I was shocked and appalled, and I know you talked about this before over the years, how few people vote. Only 27% of African Americans have voted in 3 consecutive elections. So to your point about being purged, there's a big opportunity for the Republicans because they know that to purge people off of the rolls because we don't vote consecutively. We'll vote in every 4 years or every 6 years or every 8 years, whatever. Only 27% of African Americans voted in all 3 elections, the last 3 federal elections. That's crazy. But here's the other crazy part. As a total of the total population in the United States, it was only close to 40% of everybody, black, white, whatever, that voted in 3 consecutive federal elections. And then so let's throw that, put it in the bigger light. Everybody was raving about how many people voted in the Trump-Biden election. Biden gets 81 million votes. Trump gets, however many he got, around 70 million or whatever. That was still only 66% of all eligible voters, Val. So in the time we got left here, I want you to explain to me, what is it about voting in the United States? Again, you're the political science professor. Why don't people believe it? What has been the selling point for the people who have been able to win out and convince people that voting is not a way to, I don't know, better life or there's no reason to vote? How did that win out?
Well, first of all, I think it's a class issue, Ed. A lot of folks on the lower end of our economic class system convince themselves that this whole voting thing, this citizen participation piece, that's for the boss and his buddies and the people who live on the other side of the track and the people who drive the big cars and live in the big houses, the mansions and that kind of thing. That ain't for us. Our job is to work, make enough money to put food on the table and go back to work again. Okay. The second part of that, people really believe that the system is rigged, that my vote doesn't count anyway. I go down there to vote, but they're going to say whatever they want to say, so there's no need for me to go down and vote. And then you got the whole over the legacy of big time voter suppression before the 1965 Voting Rights Act, when it was legal in many states to keep people that look like you and I did from voting. And you put all those things together and it becomes unbelievable. This is an anecdotal piece that I'm about to share with the folks out there. As far as I know, my mom nor my dad ever voted. Never. They never voted. One of the reasons that my dad and his cohorts didn't vote was because they were afraid if the word got back to their bosses, they could lose their job. If it was determined that they were downtown playing in grown folks' business, registering and voting and acting like you're a big time citizen, okay? You lose your job. Some even worse, you lose your life or whatever. So that got to be a part of the whole business that's played out in minority communities. And when we got together over the barbecue in the backyard, Ed, there may have been conversations about politics and about racism and a lot more conversation about women and about sports. But there were very little conversations about the ins and out of voter registration. And how do you go do that? And let's go do something tomorrow. I'll meet you down on the corner and let's do that at 4:00. So you put all of those things together, and it's not a normal thing to go vote. Now, there are exceptions when Barack Obama is running and everybody in the community is asking, are you registered to vote? Are you going down and vote? Then it becomes an outlier type of an identification if you say you're not going to vote or if you're not registered. So you go down and make sure you're registered to vote and you go vote. But to come back the next year to talk about municipal elections or 2 years from now in a federal election and say, we need you to go vote again. Many of them say, well, I already voted 2 years ago. Why I got to vote every 2 years or every 4 years? I mean, why you got to keep doing this thing? You got to keep doing it because that's the way democracy works. You got to keep doing it because you got to show people that you vote. African Americans have a lot of political sway in this country, not because we have a lot of votes, but because we've convinced the power structure that we will vote. So they recognize people that will vote, and they do things before the elections comes up to make sure they don't get on your bad side. That's the reason the African Americans own the 12.6% of the population of the United States of America. That's why we carry such sway, because people know that we will vote. So we got to keep our reputation up, because once we let that slip and say, well, African Americans will vote sometimes, then it's okay if they don't listen to your cry and your plea for changes or for help. So you've got to keep that reputation strong and going, that we vote. I'll see you at the poll. You may not give me or help me out right now, but you don't come and ask for my support when it comes time to run for office. And I will vote. And that's why you see so many button stickers and things like that that say, I am a whatever and I vote. Yeah. That's what we've got to convince the power structure of, that we vote. And you as an individual, you vote. If you convince them of that, you can get them to help you out on your causes, whatever they might be.
Whatever they might be. You know, Val, I said I wanted to talk about Laura Loomer and some other people, but I think I'm going to hold that over to the break because I hear some music in my ear. But when we come back, we're going to wrap up and talk about this lady named Laura Loomer. We're also going to talk about dogs in Springfield, Ohio, and whether or not they're safe or not, and cats, and a number of other things. So stay right there. We'll be right back after this message.
Even the mighty might not see it coming. It's prediabetes, and it captures 1 in 3 adults. But you can escape. Take the 1-minute prediabetes risk test to know where you stand and prevent or delay type 2 diabetes. Be your own hero on smartphones everywhere at doihaveprediabetes.org.
Welcome back to our third and final segment of The Deal. I'm your host, Ed Clark. Val, Donald Trump's crazy. So let's look at this clip of him talking about dogs and cats in Springfield.
At the ABC presidential debate, Democratic candidate Kamala Harris slammed Republican candidate Donald Trump for repeating a claim that immigrants are eating pets.
In Springfield, they're eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're eating the cats. They're eating the pets of the people that live there. And this is what's happening in our country, and it's a shame.
You know, this is, I think, one of the reasons why in this election I actually have the endorsement of 200 Republicans who have formerly worked with President Bush, Mitt Romney, and John McCain, including the endorsement of former Vice President Dick Cheney and Congress member Liz Cheney. His former Secretary of Defense has said the nation, the Republic, would never survive another Trump term. And when we listen to this kind of rhetoric, when the issues that affect the American people are not being addressed, I think the choice is clear in this election.
So Val, former president with a straight face, says your pets are in danger in Springfield, Ohio, which is not funny. But he says that because of that, one of the first things he's going to do is do mass deportations of these people. Well, here's the problem, Val. All of the Haitian immigrants that have moved into the Springfield area, they're here legally. That's number one. So is he going to do something extra legal to get rid of, send them back to Haiti? Number two, the whole story about cats and dogs being eaten is not true. Governor DeWine of Ohio, Republican, he's been on a number of things that I've seen where he says, listen, this is spurious. It didn't happen. It's not happening. It's not a problem. The mayor of Springfield has been on a number of things. I heard him on BBC this morning. The mayor says, listen, there are a lot of Haitians who moved in. Some of them have a problem with driving because they got different driving rules in Haiti. And so that's really the bulk of their problem is that, but they're not eating dogs and cats and whatever. But you had people like Donald Trump and J.D. Vance who get up and Donald Trump, as you saw in the debate, said it. J.D. Vance has said it multiple times. And people like Laura Loomer, who is a crazy woman, who Donald Trump allows to get on his plane, flies around with him. She's a conspiracy theorist. She's, crazy. She's so crazy, in fact, Val, that Marjorie Taylor Greene says she's crazy. Now, we thought Marjorie Taylor Greene was the craziest person in the Republican Party, but no. Even Marjorie Taylor Greene says Laura Loomer is crazy, but Donald Trump continues to surround himself with people like that. How do you win an election? Maybe I'm missing something. How do you win an election with telling people that Haitians are eating dogs and cats? What is easily disproven? Or you can say you're going to mass deport all these people when you know you can't. When he can, find the craziest person you can think of to add to your campaign group. And even the crazy people say the crazy people are crazy. And let's throw on one more thing. Liz and Dick Cheney, the quintessential Republicans, say you're crazy and nobody should vote for you. How do you structure a campaign to win anything when you have all those things against you? And like I said, you have these crazy stories about eating dogs and cats, and you got people like Laura Loomer around your campaign. How do you expect to win?
Well, he's not appealing to people who of a rational mind and sane thought. He's appealing to his base, which needs a little red meat, and he's giving them the whole cow in terms of red meat out there to keep them going and keep them coming to his rallies and keep them sending in money, putting flags and signs out in front of their homes and that sort of thing. So he doesn't care about this other thing. As a matter of fact, the reason they do that, Ed, is because the more bizarre the claim is, the bigger the lie, the more the media will seize upon that, because the media needs drama and they need excitement to boost up the ratings, because that's how they make their money. If ratings are high, ad dollar prices go up, right? So they're trying to make ad dollar prices go up. So they jump on this thing, and it kills me sometimes, Ed, how they try to pretend to be something they're not. I'm talking about the media now. They'll go in and say, well, we don't want to give this legs or oxygen, but I must ask you, Mr. Guest, what do you make of the whole piece about the dogs and cats being eaten, and people are afraid to put their pets out for walks and that kind of thing? What do you make of what's Trump doing here? Oh boy, there goes another $100,000 in ad rates. Oh boy, there goes another $500,000 in total net profits. You know, they know what they're doing. I mean, this JD Vance has already come out and said, "Look, I made this up because I wanted to make sure people were talking about things that were important to folks. We're talking about immigration. We're going to get them now back talking about immigration. So I made it up." Well, okay, Mr. Media, why don't you leave it alone? The guy said he made it up. Okay. Why don't you leave it alone? Oh, I can't because I would, but I can't leave money on the table. I got more ad dollars to get because it sounds interesting. And my listeners or my viewers, that's what they want. They want to walk away feeling entertained, feeling, whatever's going on. So the media, Ed, bears a lot of blame for what's going on now in their pursuit. And they're not MAGA folks. They're not trying to get Donald Trump elected because they think that conservatism should win out and I'm for Donald Trump, I'm for Republicans, I'm for MAGA. That ain't the media. They're doing this solely because of the dollar. Yeah. They want to make ad dollars. So they are helping Republicans go ahead with their talking points. Republicans make a wild, outlandish talking point. The media picks up on it. That's all we talk about for the next week and a half. Nobody can talk about the issues. Nobody can talk about the issues. And so if I were teaching my class in school again called media politics, that's all I'd be talking about in school with the kids is, hey, make sure you don't miss out on who's at the root cause of this stuff. That's your media guys, okay? Let's don't give them a break.
Yeah.
I don't think enough attention is being given to the media.
Yeah, well, clearly not. Here's the other piece of it, Val. There are some real things going on. Not only just here, but in the world. Russia and Ukraine seems to be headed towards further escalation because Britain is now supplying weapons that, we said that we didn't want them to use. Ukraine has made incursions into Russia so Russia is being invaded for the first time since World War II. There's Ukraine is not just being defensive; they're being offensive. So that could ratchet this thing up. Now, the only thing I think that's keeping it from getting way out of hand is I think Russia is a broken country, right? Vladimir Putin still talks as if he's a world leader and a strong man or whatever. He has a lot of territory, but Russia's been losing people. Russia, is by far the largest country in size, but in terms of people, it's probably down 11th, 12th, 13th, maybe 14th in population. So, India, China, US, Brazil, Indonesia, there's a lot of countries that have way more people than Russia. And so, what do you think about this Ukraine as a proxy for the West in sort of maybe putting a heel on Vladimir Putin's neck and maybe squeezing the last bit of life out of Russia as a superpower? Can Ukraine, by getting weapons from the West, be able to finally put Russia to bed once and for all?
Well, Ed, I watch a lot of movies, especially those movies having to do with history, world wars, even the Civil War and things of that nature. And I was recently watching a movie called All the Way with LBJ, in which the relationship between the Secretary of Defense, Robert McNamara, and LBJ, Lyndon Baines Johnson, was the centerpiece of the whole movie. And it talked about whether or not we should escalate the Vietnam War and run the risk of bringing China and Russia into the war or not. And Wheeler, who was the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff at that time, John Wheeler, said, the Chinese are not going to do anything because we could destroy the Chinese in 17 minutes. That's how far superior we are to them. And they were asked at that time, Wheeler was asked, why should we assume that the Chinese would be as rational as we are and know that they could be destroyed in 17 minutes and back off? What if they don't? I apply that same situation to where we are now. There are too many people thinking, Ed, that Putin, although he's got more nuclear weapons and larger nuclear weapons than anybody on the face of the earth, including us, that he would know that he can't win a nuclear exchange and not use his nuclear weapons. Why would we think that we could do anything we want, bomb Moscow, drop a nuke down the chimney of the bathroom in Putin's mansion? Why do we think we could do all of that and Putin would do nothing because he knew or he knows that he can't win a nuclear exchange war? I am afraid of this deal, Ed, because we got some wrong thinking people here. And a guy sitting on that many nuclear weapons could say, hey, I'm about to lose everything, so what? And as I've always told the Americans, if we all go back to the Stone Age, I think I got people that could come back quicker than yours. Your people in Manhattan, they can't come back from the Stone Age. They don't even know how to make a fire, from rubbing two sticks together. They can't do any of that. You got too many people who do that. We are poor already. We are closer to Mother Earth. So let's have this nuclear exchange. I think it's very dangerous, Ed, and we need to stop Ukraine from further attacks in Russia, goading them to either lose and surrender to Ukraine or start a nuclear war. I don't like that option.
I don't like that option either. Here's the other problem in Israel. I saw a story this morning. I don't remember if it was on Sky or BBC or whatever, but of Israeli settlers now trying to take over former Palestinian lands, and them further escalating because it's clear Netanyahu does not want any kind of ceasefire. His goal from the beginning, I believe, was actually to let Hamas do something. And then that provocation would be an excuse for them to level Gaza and then allow settlers to go into what used to be Gaza, because they're going to claim it as for Israel, because they're going to say that, for safety reasons, they can't let Palestinians go back. So where are we with the Israelis and Palestinians in this whole, purge of Hamas? I think that whole idea is not just to purge Hamas, but it is to put settlers into those lands.
I think you're absolutely right about that, Ed. That's what's going to happen. That's what is happening. And the big problem is it's being backed by the United States of America. On the one hand, how can you tell somebody to seek a ceasefire, and through the other hand, you're giving them weapons to continue the war? How can you do that? How can you telling them to stop fighting, seek a ceasefire, and let's go toward a two-state solution here? And by the way, here another set of rockets and missiles and jet planes to kill as many people as you want. I won't get in your way. Something is wrong with that equation. And we need to decide as a country, we, the United States of America, whose side are we really on? Do you really want a two-state solution? Or do you really want to use Israel as a proxy to take the final step toward westernizing the Middle East? I said it, westernizing the Middle East. There are many Middle Easterners who think that is the long-range ultimate goal of the West. You're using Israel to westernize the Middle East. They don't like the way the Middle East is an outlier. We've westernized large swaths of Africa and South America. And we see the Middle East as a part now that's standing out there, that we want them doing day trading, wearing suits and ties, driving Ferraris like everybody else. They already got their golf courses and that sort of thing. Take off the Jeep. I'm saying it wrong. Take off the dress of the Muslim religion. Allow women to become professionals. Just gut the whole culture and have the culture to be more westernized. Too many people over there see that they think that that is the ultimate goal of the West, and they're using Israel as a proxy. So it's going to be problematic.
Well, there's a lot of money to be made for a few people, and I think that's what it comes down to. Is that the world? I mean, from the very beginning of this conversation today, Val, I don't want to run out of time, but from the very beginning of this conversation today, this whole thing about another attempted assassination of Donald Trump, I think is due to the escalation in rhetoric, particularly from people like Donald Trump. But there are people like him around the world. Benjamin Netanyahu is a narcissist who happened to become the leader of the country, and they can't get rid of him. He's going on like 15 years now that he's been entrenched in Israel. Donald Trump would be the same. President Xi would, who ravens saber rattling against Taiwan. Is Putin a strong man you can't get rid of? He's threatening all of Europe. There's people throughout Africa, dictators throughout Africa, who take the lesson from people like Donald Trump, is that the more stuff you can have, Ferraris and yachts and all that stuff, the more Western you are, the better you're supposed to be. You're better than everybody else. Right. What happens instead is that you have to oppress people to have that stuff. Mm-hmm. So I'm not telling you anything you don't know. I think Americans in particular have been convinced that their aspiration is to be Bill Gates or somebody like that. When in fact, you will never be in the 1%. Because to be in the 1%, only 1% can be in the 1%. and it's just too cutthroat and hard to get there. Do people get there? Sure. Mark Zuckerberg is there. He had a kooky notion that he could do Facebook. But that's few and far between. But we sell our children on that they're going to be in the 1%. They should aspire to that. So then they will support a strong man or pretend strong man like Donald Trump. Anyway, I don't want to run out of time, Val. So what are we looking forward to in the coming weeks? What do you think is going to happen after this latest attempted assassination?
Well, as I tell people all the time, Ed, everywhere I go, I tell them, if you're tired of hearing about voting and voting rights and why it's so important to do this now, don't tune into The Deal with Ed Clark and Alex, because that's all we're going to be talking about all the way up to November the 5th. And that's all that is important, all the way up to November the 5th. But you know what, Ed? There's something else going on. You always ask me, what am I going to do and what I got going on? I'm going to turn the table. And I want to ask you, what have you been doing recently, and what do you got going on in the coming days and weeks?
Well, Val, I counted the other day. I've been in 39 states in the last 18 months. And there's only 11 more I got to go to. And then I'll have clean slate. I would have wiped the board with all of them. And you're right. The first thing I'll tell you about is last night I was in Wilmington, North Carolina, for the NAACP banquet. And it was very interesting. There's a guy named Reggie Schufer that spoke, and he had a very good speech about the dangers of us not voting and all the stuff that we've been talking about today. But more importantly, how America wants you to forget the history. He's from Wilmington, North Carolina. And if people know, in 1898, there was a coup in Wilmington, a fusion government of black and white people, but Wilmington was majority black. It was about 53%. White folks got mad, ran the black folks out of town, killed a number of them, took over the government. The only real coup that's ever happened in America, right? And there's some analogs to what Donald Trump and them tried to do, because they tried to claim that the election was not valid, right? The speech really resonated with me because, again, people are not paying attention to the history and the past, and that's why we talk about it so much here. The other thing is, you're right. In going to these 39 states, I've gone to a lot of these places that show up on the news. So I was in Aurora, Colorado, Val.
All places.
So guess what I did? I got in my car and I drove down to the apartment complex that the Venezuelans took over. It's a 3-unit complex, probably about, I don't know, maybe 60 apartments in it or whatever. It's in a part of town, it's a little bit older or whatever. Places where immigrants move to because that's where they can afford. And a lot of the households were multi-family or multi-people, right? Young men. So I drove by Lowe's and Home Depot in the morning, and sure enough, what did I find? A lot of immigrant men standing there waiting to do day labor because Aurora, Colorado is booming with houses that nobody's living in, but they're building them like crazy. And the reason why I think this thing came up about Aurora, Colorado, just like the thing that came up about eating cats and dogs, is that some folks don't want other people to come. And it goes back to Donald Trump and his whole thing. The xenophobia piece of their running strategy is that make the other the person you should fear, yada, yada, yada. And that's how they don't care about real policy. What they care about is scaring you into voting for them, right? And so that's what I saw in Aurora. But I was in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, a couple of weeks ago, a day or two before Kamala came. Clearly, she's following me around the country. But I was in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, and what I found really odd there is that there was this guy who's downtown nearly every day with these huge Trump flags, and he'll stop you and talk to you about why you should support Trump. He's crazy as a loon, but he's there every day in New Hampshire and in New England. And then I've been to rural Pennsylvania. I've been to, you name a place. I've been there, right? Because if you've been to 39 out of the 50 states, that's a lot. And what I can tell you is I've been to the border states, southern border states. I've been to northern border states. And if you heard what was on the news, you would think that we're just being overrun. But you know this, Val, when you get in the airplane and you look down and you're flying over the United States, it's a whole bunch of damn lanes with nobody on it. And there are some places where people congregate. That's called a city, right? And some people love to be urban. And if you choose to live there, you can go to any city around the world and they got issues, right? But if you spread out, then you tend to have less issues. And I think what's happened is the right has convinced people that the other is the problem. But I've been to all these places and I haven't seen any of it. So there you go. I guess the next place I got to go, Val, is to Springfield to make sure all cats and dogs are safe. So I guess I'll put that on my schedule. I do some business in Ohio anyway, so might as well just get in the car. It's only about 20 minutes from where I normally go. I can check on the cats and dogs. So there you go. Anyway, I hear some music in my ear, Val. Listen, folks, nobody should be shooting at Donald Trump. I'm going to say that one more time. Do not shoot at Donald Trump. Do not shoot at anybody. No political violence. The next 50 some odd days, let's have some more debates. Let's have rallies. Let's have commercials, because those aren't going away. Convince people that your side is the right side. Do it fair and square. Who wins is going to win. I hope that our side wins. That's all I got to say about that. In the meantime, go out and do something good for somebody. That's all I ever ask you to do. And then we'll be back next time, so make sure you subscribe on whatever platform you do it, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Facebook, whatever. Make sure you tell other people. And Val and I will be more than willing to tell you how you should vote. And we'll see you next time. Bye.
We gon' find a way without a doubt. Just hold on a little longer, you gon' see this through. I've been there, certain things always remain.